Welcome to our first basketball swamp cast of the SEC season. I'm Pat Dooley, sports columnist of the Gainesville Sun, along with Kevin Brockway, the Gator beat writer. And as the season has started, the SEC not looking that great. There are three teams that have good RPIs. Everybody else is awful right now. And Kevin, one of the problems is they don't have. There's no opportunities really to move up in the RPI.
Yeah, you're talking about basically, Vanderbilt's off to a great start. Ole Miss and Tennessee played a great game the other night. And, I think Florida, there's a possible chance for improvement there, but it's going to take quite a few wins, maybe an upset next week at Ole Miss, but certainly got off to a good start with the win against Alabama on Tuesday night on national TV.
Yeah, that's the real – it's funny because it's almost like Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee have the targets now. You got to beat some of those teams to move up in RPI. Otherwise – it could be a year where you see 3 or only 4 teams get into the NCAA tournament. And
certainly that puts Florida in kind of a precarious situation because you have those 3 ranked teams, and you have an Arkansas team that's a veteran team as well. I mean, I really think that if you're judging early in the season, it could come down to Arkansas and Florida for that 4th bid, or maybe if Mike Slive, wields his influence, maybe they get to 15, but that would take a lot of work, certainly.
Well, it's gonna, because it's when you look at what Florida I think is 118 in RPI right now. The consensus was, well, if they can just go 8-8 in the conference, but I don't think 8-8 is going to get it. I think they're going to be 9-7 at least, maybe 10 wins to get in.
Well, yeah, I think 9-7, and then maybe a couple of wins in the SEC tournament as well, because the committee looks at the last 10 games, and certainly that's very important how you finish. And Florida's going to have to finish strong and hope that those freshmen that are playing right now, mature into February or March and play better, and some of the sophomores too as well.
Well, we saw Florida look like a team that may have turned the corner against Alabama, and that the thing that impressed me, I mean, obviously I've said all along, Kevin, that if Florida shoots well, they can beat anybody. If they don't, I'm not sure they can beat anybody. They shot well in the Alabama game, but they found other ways to score. Dan Warner hitting some elbow jumpers and getting some putbacks, and some of the other guys getting some other baskets that they hadn't been really getting during the season.
Certainly, for Spates, it was a tough first test when you're going up against Richard Hendricks, so I think he's probably, the most physical post player in the league in the SEC at 6'8", 260, and they were very fortunate that he didn't hit his free throws.
Yeah.
But, this was a game where, unlike Ohio State, where maybe the shooters felt some of the pressure, the shooters were kind of shooting the ball free and easy. I thought that Jay Lucas, at the end of the first half, that three-pointer that he made was really big and carried the momentum into the second half. But I think they're just going to need different people to produce different nights. And, Walter Hodge gave them 17 points, which was big, and they got a lot of points out of their guards. Now, a game like Auburn where, they're not as physically big, they might need some more points from their front court.
Well, and this is an Auburn team that, I don't know, what are they down? They have 5 players left. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries, and they didn't have a lot to go with in the first place. But I think more than anything, Kevin, and you wrote about it in the Gainesville Sun this week, we're going to find out about a lot the mindset of this team because, as Billy said, can they handle a little bit of success? This is their first real success, beating Alabama on the road for this young team. Can they handle it against a team they should beat at home?
Yeah, and certainly that's where maturity comes into play, and you've got guys that are, Jay Lucas talked today a little bit about guys kind of patting him on the back and saying that you're doing well. Well, how do you take that? Do you work as hard as in practice? And Billy so far has really liked kind of the mindset of this team. I think he sees the limitations as more physical than mental with this group, and in terms of just being able to survive the rigors of the SEC. But so far, I haven't really seen a game where guys have really been dogging it yet. But we'll see what happens as the season progresses, because certainly this is a lot more of a physical grind than it is during the non-conference season when you're playing high point and teams that are not as big and strong.
Yeah, and the physicality of it. These guys, we've talked about it before, the freshman wall, even sometimes a sophomore wall with Torian Green playing his first full year at the point. So with these freshmen, I think that's when it's going to be really interesting is the last, say, 5 games of the SEC season.
Yeah, and they're very fortunate this year in that they do have that bye on February 23rd, which is later than what they've had it in the past. That might help alleviate some of the things, but I think it's still going to be a challenge. You take a look at a guy like Lucas, who's 155 pounds. If that, and he sweats off another 5 pounds. I mean, where is he going to be by the end of the season?
I recommend beer, and beer is a good thing to gain weight. I found that out, but not for certainly an underage drinker. We wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. Obviously, the one thing that I give Florida an edge in, and I've not always been able to say this in the last 12 years, is the coaching. I mean, right now, Billy has learned a lot over 12 years in the SEC. Obviously, it's not just because of the two national champions that I say that, championships. But I'm not sure this is a great league for coaches. I think there's some very good ones. We talked about it in football. It's an unbelievable league now. Basketball, there's some guys on the hot seat, and I'm not sure that the Bradys and Stansberrys and Feltons of the world are going to survive this year.
And you should have heard in Coleman Coliseum Tuesday, Godfrey, some of the fans were getting on him.
Yeah.
Make an adjustment, Godfrey. They were screaming from
the
stands.
It'd be his first, by the way.
And I thought in the second half, Billy did a really good job throughout the game of shuttling guys in and out, and then the second half applying the pressure. And Florida pressed a lot better in the second half, and that seemed to throw Alabama really out of whack, all the different defensive looks that Florida was giving them. And I think that gave Florida confidence on the offensive end as well. And a lot of that had to do with Billy and Larry Shyatt making adjustments at halftime.
Yeah, it certainly did, and we'll see what happens with this Auburn game on Saturday. Noon game, so you wonder if the crowd's going to fill it up early, be loud. This place has a reputation, and this so far during the non-conference season, there hasn't any reason to get excited except for the Florida State game, and that didn't work out so well. So we'll see if the Gator fans are kind of fired up for this one.
Yeah, it's projected as a sellout as most of the SEC games are. So I think Florida, I think the players are looking forward to it, and certainly it has a chance. Now, do you see the letdown though? That's the big question. After the Alabama win, Billy wants to know, as we touched on before, how do they handle the success? And it'll be interesting to see that first 5 minutes how they come out and what kind of intensity they come out with.
Especially if there's some early adversity, do they respond well? The crowd will be there to lift them up, so we'll see how that goes. We'll be back with another podcast early next week and talk about the schedule ahead of Florida and what they've got in line, and then we'll, of course, be wrapping up the Auburn basketball game as well. Until then, this is Pat Dooley, Kevin Brockway saying so long.